Hello guys. So today I'm going to be showing you the viable rune pages for Bard in the current meta. At the start here, I'm going to show you the best Guardian rune page on Bard. Font of Life is good, but you can also take Demolish depending on how hard the lane is. If it's not a terrible lane, you can take Demolish for extra damage on the turret, and Font of Life just helps your AD carry to heal more, and other members of your team when you are slowing them or stunning them. But I prefer Font of Life. On to the next. Bone Plating is the best because Bard has a short trade pattern, which means he isn't taking long fights, and this negates damage in those short fights. It's the best. Revitalize. Revitalize increases your heals and shields, so it'll increase the shield on Guardian, which is really nice, and it increases your W heal, which doesn't matter too much, but the increase on the Guardian health is really nice. I would never recommend taking either of those, so this is the best on this left side. Almost always when you're taking Guardian, you're going to be into a losing matchup, so it's really nice to have the extra healing of Inspiration. There's nothing else in Inspiration that would be really nice, unless for some reason you're in a burst lane. You can occasionally take Perfect Timing instead of the Biscuit Delivery, but I prefer to always just go the double regen for most poke lanes, because that is when I take Guardian most often. With Guardian, you don't need to be auto-attacking that much, so I prefer to opt for the double offensive runes. However, if it is a very difficult matchup, you can occasionally run either a magic resist and a defensive one, some HP and MR, depending on their lane. These you need to be flexing around, which is why they're called the flex runes. Or this one I guess is called the flex rune, but I consider this bottom one flex as well. But yeah, most often I'm going to be running double AP, just for the little bit of extra damage that I'm losing out with running the 2 utility in Inspiration and Resolve. You can opt for going double defensive depending on how difficult your lane is. Electrocute is meant for lanes that you need to be bursting people in, such as a Soraka or a Sona lane. You win these lanes already, but having the extra burst to get through a barrier or something is very needed as Bard. So, the best Electrocute page is as follows. Electrocute, cheap shot because these others wouldn't help you that much at all. You don't auto enough to get the healing from this to be worth it, and you have no leaps or dashes, so that's useless. And then Eyeball Collection, because after the Ghost Poro nerf, or change I suppose, it's not as good, and I personally don't like Zombie Word, but I suppose you could run that into certain situations, or if you've got a bias toward that. But I personally go for the Eyeball Collection, seeing as I will get the extra damage from it, and that is the entire reason that I ever take Electrocute. Moving on to the last, Relentless Hunter. This one, I do switch up quite a lot. Other than this one on the far left, you can take Indigenous Hunter, which if you're running a Redemption build with Electrocute, let's say you're playing with a Kog'Maw, but you need to burst down Soraka still or something like that, then you can run the Electrocute build and have Indigenous Hunter to reduce the cooldowns on Redemption, and maybe Locket of the Ancillary, if you still need to peel for a Kog'Maw or something like that. Most of the time I do run Relentless Hunter, as it gives me 16% increased movement speed at max stacks, which is really nice for roaming around the map and getting your stacks on Relentless Hunter. Ultimate Hunter is also nice if you are super good with your ultimate. I personally am just better with my basic abilities than I am with my ultimate, so I don't take Ultimate Hunter all that often, but if I'm trying to practice ultimate and use it as frequently as possible, then Ultimate Hunter can be viable as well. Moving on to the next section, I personally like going double offensive, so I run Domination and Sorcery. If you're into something that can burst you back, taking a Nullifying Orb is okay, but I personally like running Celerity most often, as it gives you the 7% increased movement speed, technically 8%, which would also stacks with the movement speed from Relentless Hunter. So running these two in tandem is extremely good. Extremely good. In terms of other ones you can run with this, I pretty much always run Scorch if I'm going to take Sorcery second. You can, however, opt for a more defensive playstyle in the Resolve tree with Bone Plating and Revitalize. Or, if they have Extreme Poke, it's spread out so that Bone Plating can't regen you, you could run Second Wind, or you could go over here in Inspiration and run the double regen. In most cases where you're running Electrocute, I prefer running the Sorcery. If you're running Electrocute, I almost always recommend taking the 10% attack speed. It makes it so much easier to get your Empowered auto attack off, as well as the Q, so that it just makes proccing Electrocute significantly easier. I always take the extra AP in the Flex Rune, just because we are going for that offensive build page. This one I switch around sometimes. If they have a pokey support with an ADC I'm still afraid of, then I take this health rune because I know I'm going to be taking damages from both types of sources. If I know that it's going to be a Zyra with an AD carry that won't be auto-attacking me that often, then I can take something like a magic resist because I want to reduce the damage from Zyra plants and such. If it's an AD carry that's going to be damaging me a lot with like a tank support, then this is the option for me, as the tank support won't be dealing that much damage and I'll be taking damage mainly from AD sources. Alrighty, so we've gone over the Electrocute page and its variants. Comet is similar to Electrocute, the fact that it is more of an aggressive playstyle. However, you can play more safely with Comet, as you don't have to walk up for an auto attack to proc your rune, obviously, your keystone. Alrighty, in terms of whether you take Nullifying Orb, Mana Flow Band, or Nimbus Cloak, Bard doesn't need mana because he's got Chimes. Nimbus Cloak is nice if for some reason your ultimates are going to be super far away from you and you need to run a long ways and you can't like E towards them, or you're not ulting from close range. Most of the time when I'm taking Comet, I almost never take Comet personally, because I just think Domination is, or Electrocute is the better version of the aggro Bard. However, into certain matchups like Lux, where I can almost never get auto attacks off, Comet seems like a viable direction to go if you don't want to go the tank path with the Guardian page, because you can proc your keystone without having to get the auto attack off, because Lux's ability ranges are just extremely long in comparison to Bard's. So that is why I personally like to run Nullifying Orb, because that also helps me into the Lux matchup negate some of her burst with her EQ ultimate. In terms of the next thing to take here, Transcendence is useless, as almost every Bard path build gives you a significant amount of CDR, so it's not worth taking CDR in your runes. Absolute Focus is viable if you know you're going to be poking more than the enemy, and Celerity is viable if you want to roam. So this too is flex. If you know that you're not going to be taking that much poke, then you can run this one. But I prefer to roam a lot, so Celerity works better on me with the increased movement speed. Alrighty, in terms of the last one here, Water Walking is somewhat viable, but after the few nerfs it got a long time ago, I haven't run it that often. However, Scorch is very nice in tandem with Arcane Comet, as it will proc on your Q, and that'll proc on the Comet, so they'll be burning for a little while after. Alrighty, in terms of what you would like to run in the secondary, as I said, Comet is the more safer version of the Electrocute Bard, so I don't personally like to run double offensive, is what I call the sorcery and domination tree. I call them the offensive trees. The reason I do not like to do that is because, obviously I said it's the safer version of Electrocute, so I like to run something a little more utility or a little more defensive. Like I said, most of the time I run this into hard poke lanes, so Bone Plating helps me negate a lot of that damage. Second Wind could also assist me, and Revitalize is also quite nice. However, personally, I opt for the Inspiration double healing quite often, as it does heal slightly more than like a Second Wind or a Bone Plating could block. So that is what I personally run if I'm going to go Comet. The reason I do not run attack speed on this is because, like I said, I'm taking Comet so that I do not need to auto attack. If I don't need to auto attack, I don't need the extra the attack speed. Obviously, auto attacking will occur, but to get my keystone off, I don't need to auto attack that often, which is why I run the double offensive flex runes, I'll call them, just to increase the damage on my Comet and my Q. You can run health here, you can run defense here. Like I said, this one changes up depending on what their bot lane is playing. Most of the time, or almost every time, I never take the defensive rune, because there aren't many AD poke supports, so that just doesn't make any sense, and that's the only time I ever run Comet. So I most often run the health rune or the MR rune. Glacial Augment is very situational and sort of hard to learn how to use. The reason I put it on here as viable is because Glacial Augment is just super strong. You've got to change your entire build path to make it viable, but it can work into certain situations. If you find that it's already a winning lane for Bard, I have a video already. I will put it in the link description, and it'll be in the end card or whatever, that shows you all of the winning matchups for Bard. Glacial Augment can be substituted into for Electrocute, or like vice versa, into certain matchups, which you could see from the other video. Specifically for matchups that you need to chase the enemy, because your burst wouldn't be high enough with Electrocute, or you've got an AD carry that would like to get more auto attacks off rather than you just bursting them yourself. So the most viable Glacial Augment page is obviously Glacial Augment. Perfect timing because magical footwear. I personally do not like taking on Bard, as you would like to roam in the early game before you get your boots from magical footwear. I roam a lot before the 12-minute mark. Hex Flash could work, but you're a crazy motherfucker if you take that. I prefer taking the perfect timing, as it is nice to catch your enemy off guard when you're about to die, and then all of a sudden your team collapses and you're in Zonias before you even hit 6, which is nice. Alright, Biscuit Delivery and Time Warp Tonic. I do not personally like taking anything else in these bottom 2 tree tiers. I suppose you could go Futures Market if you wanted to hit the power spikes a little bit gold early. If you're going to try and rush Twin Shadows or Hextech GLP to run in tandem with your Glacial Augment, then that seems fine. In terms of the secondary rune pages to run with Glacial Augment, there's a few viable things. The reason why there's 2 viable things is because there's movement speed bonuses in both Domination and Sorcery. I find that having increased movement speed helps a significant amount when using the Glacial Augment keystone. It helps you stay on top of them and potentially proc it twice, and also get in range to proc your Glacial Augment at the very start. So I personally opt for the Domination in the secondary with Relentless Hunter and Eyeball Collection just for a little bit more damage, just because I don't think Cheap Shot is that strong when you're not running Domination as your primary. Okay, and the second viable one would be Celerity with the increased movement speed, and then Scorch. This would potentially work, but I believe you get more movement speed from a Relentless Hunter on max stacks than you do from the Celerity tree. So this is my Glacial Augment page. I do run the attack speed rune on Glacial Augment. It is similar in a sense to Electrocute, where you do need auto attacks to make your keystone work. I do like running the Adaptive Force, but this one could be switched around a whole bunch based on their bot lane, as I've said previously. So this is the last rune page. It is Hail of Blades. So it gives you the extra attack speed for 3 auto attacks. So the extra auto attack speed for 3 auto attacks, which is nice. It's nice. It's kind of similar to Electrocute, as you want to walk up and bop bop bop. It's not bad. I don't personally like this, but I've seen a few high elo bards that do run this as their main keystone. But as attack speed is quite nice and synergizes well with Bard's meeps. So, Hail of Blades is viable. So here is the rune page that you should be running with this, obviously. Cheap Shot, since these other 2 aren't good on Bard. Eyeball Collection, as I don't like the other 2 in this current meta. Relentless Hunter helps you get in range to get the auto attacks off. I suppose you could run a number of these other ones, as I've said previously. Okay, on to the secondary. I really do like running Resolve with Hail of Blades, as having Bone Plating is extremely nice when you're getting the reduced damage and you're trying to walk up for multiple auto attacks. And as so I like the Revitalize, but you could switch out the Revitalize for Demolish if you so chose. As Revitalize, you're not going to be healing that much when you're going for a Hail of Blades rune page. But if you do opt for a Redemption build still, then I would recommend taking Revitalize as well, along with the Bone Plating with this rune page. The attack speed is evidently very nice with the Hail of Blades, as you're getting double attack speed sources. And then I like the flex as well, just to increase damage on meeps, and you can obviously flex this last one based on matchup. Those have been my viable runes for June the 8th, 2019. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps you in some matchups. And if you want to know what matchups beat what, here, you can go check out some of my other videos. And if you want to see me stream live, then go to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/ebootsy. Please subscribe and leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Have a great day.